has been a disaster for Iran, and it has replaced one regime which had its unsavory aspects with another regime which has far more greater unsavory aspects. Speaking slightly more regionally, I think it was the Islamic Revolution in Iran which gave the major boost to a surge of, or the current surge of Islamism, not only across the Middle East but also across, which has now grown into across many Islamic communities, Muslim communities across the world. That is slightly ironic because, as previous speakers have referred to, Iran is a Shia Muslim country, and the Shias are a minority in the world Islamic community. Which brings me on to my next point, and this is where I will draw my remarks to a close so that the next speaker has time and there's time for question and answer, is that what we have now is, never mind the relations between the Islamic world and the non-Islamic world, within the Islamic world itself there is a tremendous tension between the Sunni community and the Shia community, a tremendous fear amongst the Sunnis of the growth and in the power of Iran, represented initially by its revolutionary radicalism after the revolution, and now as the prospect of an Iran armed with nuclear weapons gets closer, this has become enhanced. I've managed to speak for 10 minutes without mentioning Palestine, but I would accept from Jamil's point of view that the Palestinian issue is a very motivating issue within the Arab and the Islamic world. I would also say, though, that it's not exclusively the issue. When I used to live in Kashmir, in Pakistan, Kashmir was the focus of Pakistani concerns, although they paid lip service to Arab concerns and the issue of Palestine. We live in interesting times. I've had a tremendously interesting time watching this and writing about it for the last 30 years. I congratulate myself on choosing an area which has remained current, but I am worried that that area, these subjects will remain current for the next 30 years as well.
Many decades now, articles are written, many Western papers pinpointing, highlighting, exaggerating any fault or perceived fault of the Iranian society, leveling sensational allegations against the Iranian nation with an extent and frequency that indicate more than mere coincidence. And when facts are nowhere to be found, fiction takes center stage in achieving what reality cannot, namely stereotyping Iran's revolutionary ideology as intransigent, its supporters as fanatic, and revolutionary Iranian women as homebound, subservient, and reclusive. Branding certain oppressive, unpopular governments kept in power via financial and military assistance as moderate and friendly, quote unquote. Constant criticism and censure, and severe censure, has been continuously leveled by some Western media and politicians alike against the administrative body of the Islamic Republic, despite its enormous popularity in the region and on the Arab Street, according to friend and foe alike. One reason for this popularity is Iran's independence from foreign influence, as shown in its strong support for the plight of the Palestinian people. The victory of the Islamic Revolution in Iran was not an isolated incident. It was an event of universal proportions that literally changed the course of history by introducing an element to the global political equation, changing the existing bipolar world 30 years ago. The formation of the first Islamic Republic in modern history was not a local, national, or even regional event. It had global implications. There were political, economic, and social ramifications throughout the world, from the Far East to North America. Over a decade of scholarly debates took place prior to the victory of the Islamic Revolution. There were numerous lectures by Ayatollah Dr. Morteza Motahari and Dr. Ali Shariati, a student of Jean-Paul Sartre, who returned to Iran from France, delivering speeches at a place called Hosseini Ershad, where thousands of students would gather to hear him speak of an alternative perspective on women that was different from the materialistic viewpoints and negated the outdated traditional mold as well. Berkeley professor Hamid Algar, in his book The Roots of the Islamic Revolution, calls this revolution the most significant, hopeful, and profound event in the entirety of contemporary Islamic history. The Constitution of the Islamic Republic, which is based on Islamic principles, guarantees a democratic process in the country through the participation of the people in elections. It also guarantees the rights of every Iranian individual, regardless of gender, race, religion, and ethnic origin. Iran will have its 10th presidential election taking place in June. There have also been 8 parliamentary, several general referendums, and many local and provincial elections. The social impact of the Islamic revival on Muslim women, according to Professor John Esposito, director of the Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding at Georgetown University, was that it, quote-unquote, produced a third alternative that is both modern and firmly rooted in Islamic faith, identity, and values. The revolutionary Iranian woman admires Western women who engage in research, who are scholars and teachers and politicians. She gladly follows such quests for knowledge and self-improvement, yet she adamantly refuses to accept that by endorsing progress, one has to forego piety. The intellectual movement that preceded the revolution and the Islamic Revolution itself as a modern and progressive Islamic movement was never truly introduced to the Western public. Today, we see the West struggling to define a modern form of Islam that can coexist with the West, and at every corner they turn for answers, they see Iran. Media representation of the events in Iran may have had some audiences in the West, but to the well-informed people or those who lived in the region and witnessed the day-to-day occurrences, the rhetoric in the West sounded hollow. Recorded facts indicate that this revolution was the most popular in modern history and had the support of 98.2% of the population.